And welcome again to Cottage Talk. I am Russ Goldman. This episode is entitled Cottage Talk Analysis, Marco's new contract. On Tuesday, Fulham announced huge news, and this is massive news. And I'm going to be sharing my thoughts on Marco's new contract in this episode. Please also do check out my recent episode where I look back at the 2-0 loss to Spurs as well. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcast. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Okay. Well, I'm not going to waste any time. I'm actually been looking forward to talking about this great news for all the Fulham supporters that Marco has signed a new contract. This changes a great deal. I've been waiting for this day. I've been wondering if this day was going to come. Well, now it's come. And now I'm going to look back at the fact that he has signed this. And what does it mean? What does it mean? Well, let's start off. As I mentioned, it's big news. It's great news. It actually, hopefully, will be a move that will move Fulham forward for years to come. So let's just leave it there. I'm very excited, but I want to really look at what the actual signing means in this episode. But before I do that, I just want to read from the article on the Fulham website and some comments from Marco, and I'll share my thoughts on it, and that's how we're going to start this episode. So the article is entitled Marco Signs New Contract. I'll just read from it. The club is delighted to announce that head coach Marco Silva has signed a new contract, keeping him at Fulham until the end of the 2025-2026 season. Speaking after signing the deal, Silva said, quote, "I'm really pleased to sign a new contract as it was something we've been discussing for some time. It's always a good sign when both parties are happy and want to continue working together. I feel that the business is not done yet, and we've had 2 great seasons, and the goal is clearly there to sustain this club in the Premier League. This is key for the future of the club, and we are working hard to achieve it. It is important to feel the trust and have the support of our owners. My relationship with them and with Fulham Football Club as a whole has been really important in this decision and the success of the last 2 seasons. The commitment and ambition that these players have demonstrated since day one has been the key to what we have achieved. And that will always continue to be the case, along with the unconditional support of our fans who are fundamental. Let's continue together on this long journey." End of quote. Okay. So that is from Marco Silva. Those are quotes from Marco about his new contract. A couple things I want to point out in it. Like I said, this is great news, but I want to point out what Marco had said. It sounds like to me he is in lockstep with the owners, and that's very important. He feels he have the trust. I'm going to talk about that upcoming. That's very important. He obviously is pleased to sign the new deal. But what is interesting about this couple things is that he talks about that the business is not done yet, and that there are 2 things that stuck out for me is to sustain this club in the Premier League. He talks about that. That's very important. That might be what's going on this season. But he also talks about the players having the commitment and ambition, and they've demonstrated that. And I think that's important. He doesn't come out and say his own ambition, but I actually had a source tell me that Marco's ambition is for Fulham to be in the Champions League someday. So for me, he doesn't talk about his own ambition, but I think the fact that Marco has decided to continue his journey with Fulham tells me that he feels confident that Fulham are going to push forward. I haven't seen it yet because I'm disappointed by the summer transfer window, but maybe he now knows things that we don't know. So hopefully he got the assurances that he needs, and I'll be talking about that as well coming up. But let's move on to what this could potentially mean moving forward. So let's talk about the players that we currently have, and this will give them stability. I can't say that enough. If you know the manager is going to be there for at least this season and 2 more seasons, that's got to be comforting to you. That also shows that he's committed to Fulham Football Club for that journey. So now you can just say, okay, I don't have to worry about the manager leaving. He's going to be here. So that has to help you feel more comfortable about being in Fulham. Maybe that will help Fulham have the ability to extend some players. So for me, this to me will help the players' mentality. It might help them sign new deals. It might convince them to sign new deals. But it also will give them confidence that Marco's going to be here. And maybe that will give them that extra feeling when they go out on the pitch, knowing that the manager is going to be there long term. And hopefully I can be there long term too. So I think the ripple effect of this will affect this season. It absolutely will. We still need to see what they do in January. But I think this gives me even more confidence that Fulham will not be in a relegation battle. And part of it is the stability of the players. The players believe in Marco, and now they know that Marco's going to be here for 2 seasons and beyond this one. So that to me is massive. Okay. So the other thing that I think is huge, and I think this was a factor over the summer, this should help bring in players in January and beyond. It absolutely should. If you are a player that's considering coming to Fulham, you want to know the manager's going to be there. So now you know this. So this has to help. I think it hurt them this summer. I absolutely do. I think it hurt them this summer. It's funny. I remember some quotes from Alex Iwobi that he liked the ambition of Marco Silva, his vision of Fulham Football Club. That also allowed me to feel that maybe a deal was coming. I'm paraphrasing what Iwobi said, but I remember reading some quotes from him. So this should help bring in more players like Iwobi. Hopefully bring in players that are at a high level, because I think Fulham need more players at the level of Paulinho. Iwobi's a very good player. I don't think he's quite at that level. They need high-level players. They need an elite striker. I'm going to say it right now. Maybe this will convince an elite striker to come to Fulham Football Club. I hope so. That's why this deal is massive for not just now, not just in January, but beyond that. Hopefully, you're going to see a higher level of player come through the door at Craven Cottage. I really hope so. And I think Marco's decision to sign for another 2 years just is so wonderful. So I just want to mention that, because I think this now gives the emphasis that, to me, sends the message Fulham are going forward. They're not just going to stay put. Now, like I said, I read in the statement, obviously staying in the Premier League is the number one goal, but I think they have other goals. And I know Marco's ambition is not just for Fulham just to stay in the league. It absolutely is not. And I do hope the Cons give him the players he needs to push forward. That's the way I'm looking at it. Now, here's an interesting one. Does this mean Paulinho stays? I don't know about this, but there's some talk coming out of Bayern Munich that they're already making excuses for if they don't get Paulinho or they decide to go in a different direction, talking about maybe knee issues that they had when they did his medical, which I find interesting. But does this mean Paulinho stays? Was Marco given assurances that Paulinho stays? I don't know, but I find it interesting. And I don't know. We don't have the answer to this, but I think we'll find out a little bit more of the direction of Fulham Football Club in January. I think we're going to find that out. But it can't hurt that Marco is staying. That maybe that will convince Paulinho to stay a little bit longer. I don't think he makes it past the summer. I just don't see that. But you never know. You never know if he enjoys playing for Marco and maybe he wants to stay at Fulham long term. I hope that's the case. But I don't know if this means that Pauline is staying, but it can't hurt that Marco's staying longer. It might convince him to stay longer. That's the way I'm looking at it. Okay, coming up next, I'm going to share my thoughts on why I feel he signed a new contract. Okay, so the question for me is, why did he sign a new contract? It's an interesting one. And this is just my theory on it. I don't have any information on it, but I'm just going to share my thoughts on this. So the big one is this. Why would Marco sign a new contract if he didn't get some assurances? That's what I'm looking at. Did he get some assurances that there would be funds in January? Did he get some assurances that they would go big time next summer? I don't know. That's what makes this signing of a new contract interesting. I know he wants to be in the Premier League, but he signed for an additional 2 years after this one to be at Fulham. So he has to believe that Fulham are headed in the right direction, or why would he sign a new deal? Here's an interesting one. And I was talking to a fellow Fulham supporter about this. So it gets me to think, did Marco win a power struggle? Did he get what he wanted? And I just thinking to myself, I think he had to sign a new deal. He had to have some assurances that he would be getting the things that he wanted, that he would, maybe he has more say now in the players coming in. I'm not saying he has overall say, but maybe he has more say on the targets. Maybe he has more say on making these signings. I don't know, but I have a feeling for him to sign a new deal that he won some kind of power struggle. And I don't think that means that Tony Khan is not part of the decision-making process. But I have a feeling that Marco has more say than he had even before. Why else would he sign a new contract? Again, this is just my theory on that. So this goes back to another question. Does this mean Fulham will spend in January? And I actually think that they're going to, but the question is, how much will they spend in January? How many players will they bring in? Last time they brought in Sasa Lukic was a very good signing. I do hope that this signing of Marco's new contract means that Fulham will give Marco money in January to kick on. I think it's important. I think it's very important that Fulham kick on and not just be comfortable in the league, but go further up the league. My dream of seventh was blown this summer, so I'm not even thinking about that. But I don't want to be in any relegation battle. And they have two glaring needs, and that is center back and striker. And I do hope that Fulham give Marco what he needs in January to kick on. So does this mean Fulham will spend in January? I don't know. But I would think that he would have to have some kind of assurances either in January or this summer that he would have money to spend. So hopefully it starts in January. Well, only time will tell. But the news of Marco signing is massive, and you can't play it down. This is massive. This changes a great deal. So for those who think that Fulham are going to be in a relegation battle, you're wrong. You're absolutely wrong. That's not going to happen. I truly believe that they might struggle in parts of the season like we're seeing coming up because it's a difficult run coming up. But they're not going to be in a relegation battle, and I believe that they're going to be building for the future. Why else would Marco Silva sign a new contract? That's the bottom line. That's my analysis. Why would Marco sign a new contract if he did not feel that Fulham would be pushing forward in the Premier League? And I've already said, and I'll say it one more time, source told me Marco has ambitions of Champions League for Fulham. I'm not saying that will ever happen, but it's good to know he has that ambition. Maybe Fulham do as well, finally. Okay. Well, that's going to do it for this episode of Cottage Talk. As always, please do subscribe on YouTube and Apple Podcasts. It does help other Fulham supporters find us. Well, that's going to do it for this episode. My name is Russ Goldman. Thank you as always for watching and listening to Cottage Talk, part of the talkSPORT Fan Network.